Good afternoon, students. How are you? I hope you all are fine and happy these days. Still now, you are listening to my voice only. So, I thought of introducing myself to you. I am Kartika. I am your physical science teacher. Then, I hope that you are comfortable with this new way of learning, and we hope that everything will be back to normal if all are obeying the instructions given by our government and the health professionals. Then, I know that you all are waiting for today's class. Then, let's start our new section. Then, what we have learned in our previous class? Do you remember that? Anyone can see what we have learned in our previous class? Yes, we started our new chapter named Force and Pressure. And we have learned some points about forces, isn't it? Then, what is meant by force? Can you see? Yes, force is a push or pull on an object. Can you see some another definition for force? Can you see? Yes, force is a physical quantity. Force is a type of physical quantity. Using the force, we can change the shape of some object and direction of some object and also speed of the object, isn't it? Yes, that is, force is a physical quantity. Using force, we can change the shape of object and dimension of object and the state of motion of object. And we know that the state of motion include both direction of motion and speed of object. Okay. These are the points we covered in our previous class. Then, can you see what is the unit of force? What is the unit of force? Yes, unit of force is Newton. Newton is the unit of force. Okay. I hope you all are remember these points. Then we can go to our new topic. We know that forces are due to the interaction between two objects. Forces are due to the interaction between two objects. And this interaction can be of direct contact or of indirect contact. This interaction can be of direct contact or indirect contact. Based on this, the forces are classified into two types. How many types? Two types. Okay. They are contact force and the second is non-contact force. Okay. If there is a direct interaction between two objects, then it is called contact force. If there is a direct interaction between two objects, then it is called contact force. While some in another forces, there is no direct contact between two objects, and such a type of forces are we called non-contact forces, and that is contact forces and non-contact forces are the two types of forces. Okay. Then let's see some examples of contact forces and non-contact forces. Can you say under which category of force does this comes? Yes, this is an example for contact force. Why you say that this is an example for contact force? Yes, the object is moving due to the direct contact between my hand and this book. Since this is an example for contact force. Here there is a direct contact between my hand and this book. So this force is an example for contact force. Is it clear? Then, can you lift a bucket of water without holding it? Say, no. Why? Because for lifting a bucket of water, we have to make a contact between the object and our body. So, that is another example for contact force. Then, do you know where does the force comes from? For doing these activities, we have to apply force on the object. Then, where does this force comes from? These force are caused by the action of our muscles. These force are caused by the action of our muscles. The forces due to the action of our muscles is called muscular force. What is muscular force? The forces due to the action of our muscles is called muscular force. Okay? That is, muscular force is an example for contact force. Muscular force is an example for contact force. Like when you are playing cricket, when you are playing football, when you are walking, when you are eating, when you are jumping and doing all these activities that operate a force which is called muscular force. There also we are using muscular force. Then, is human beings only using this muscular force? No. Animals also make use of the muscular force for carrying loads from one place to another and also for doing their physical activities, etc. So, not only human beings but also animals also make use of this muscular force, and muscular force is an example for which force? Contact force. Okay? Is it clear? Let's see some another example of contact force, that is frictional force. Now, this ball is moving and it is stopped without any application of external force. While a moving object stops itself without the application of any external force, do you know? Which force is responsible to make this moving ball to rest? Do you know? That is the frictional force. The frictional force is acting between two bodies. Here, the one is the surface of the ball and the second is surface of the table. That is, the frictional force is acting in between these two surfaces and the frictional force is responsible to make the moving ball to rest. Okay? That is, frictional force that operates between ball and the surface, that force is responsible for stopping the motion of this ball. Okay? I think you have got some idea about frictional force. That is, the frictional force operates on all the moving object in the direction opposite to the direction of motion of the object. Okay? I will show you one more time. Consider it's a ball. Okay? Then I have applied a force on this ball. Then the ball is moving in this direction. Then after moving to some distance, the ball comes to rest itself. What is the reason for that? That is by the action of frictional force. Because if the ball is moving in this direction, the frictional force acts opposite to the direction of motion of the ball. That is, if ball is moving in this direction, the frictional force acting this direction. Frictional force acting this direction. Due to the action of frictional force, this ball moves some distance and stops itself. Okay? Now, let's discuss about non-contact force. You know what is non-contact force? Yes. In non-contact force, there is no direct contact between two objects. Such type of forces are called non-contact force. In non-contact force, we have to study about 3 examples of non-contact force. They are magnetic force, electrostatic force, and the third, gravitational force. Which are the examples for non-contact force? The first one, magnetic force, the second, electrostatic force, and the third, gravitational force. Okay, then let's begin to get some idea about magnetic force. Okay, you know that how many poles do a magnet have? Yes, 2 poles. A magnet have 2 poles such as north pole and south pole. We know that opposite poles of a magnet, that is south pole of one magnet and north pole of another magnet, that is opposite pole of 2 magnets attract each other and like poles of a magnet repel each other, isn't it? Yes, opposite poles of a magnet attract each other and the like poles of a magnet repel each other even though the 2 magnets are not in contact with each other. That is, a magnet can exert a force on another magnet and that force is called magnetic force. And the magnetic force is an example for non-contact force because for experiencing magnetic force, there is no need to maintain direct contact between these 2 magnets. Okay, and this magnet can exert a force on another iron rod also. Okay, I will show you one thing for clearing that. All of you listen here. Do you know what is this? Yes, it's a duster. But a magnet is present inside this duster. So we can assume this magnet as a duster. This duster as a magnet. Okay. Then it's a piece of iron rod. I am going to bring closer the iron rod to this magnet. Let's see what's happening. What happened? The duster attract the iron rod because the magnet inside this duster has the capacity to attract some iron material also, or it has a capacity to apply the magnetic force on iron materials also. So this is another one situation showing examples of non-contact force. This is a situation example of magnetic force, and the magnetic force is an example for non-contact force. The second example for non-contact force is electrostatic force. You have learned about electrostatic force in your 7th class. What is electrostatic force? Can you say? Electrostatic force is the force that means a charged body exerts some force on another charged body or to some uncharged body. That force is called electrostatic force. That is, electrostatic force is the force exerted by a charged body on a uncharged body or to a charged body, which is called electrostatic force. Okay, and in this electrostatic force also, there is no need to maintain the direct contact between 2 objects or 2 charged bodies. Okay, so the electrostatic force is taken as a non-contact force. In electrostatic force, there is no direct contact between 2 objects. So it is an example for non-contact force. Then I will show you a video to get a clear idea about electrostatic force. All of you listen.
Let us explore the concept of charge with the help of a daily life activity. When we comb our dry hair and bring the comb near small pieces of paper, we observe that these pieces of paper get attracted towards the comb. Why did it happen? To find the answer for this and to learn some more concepts, let us perform an experiment. In this experimental arrangement, we have a glass rod, silk cloth, cat's fur, another glass rod suspended from a stand, paper and plastic rod. Now, hold the suspended glass rod with the paper and rub it with the silk cloth. After rubbing, some charge appears on the rod. By convention, the charge appeared on the glass rod is called positive. Now, similarly, hold the glass rod lying on the table with the paper and rub it with the silk cloth. Since both the rods are of glass and are rubbed by the same material, so both acquire same type of charge, that is positive. After rubbing the glass rod with the silk cloth, the cloth acquires negative charge. Now, when both the charged glass rods are brought closer, we observe repulsion between them. It proves that like charges repel each other. Now, let's repeat the experiment again with a plastic rod and a cat's fur. Hold the suspended plastic rod with the paper and rub it with a cat's fur. After rubbing, it acquires some charge. By convention, this type of charge is called negative. Again, rub another plastic rod lying on the table with the cat's fur. As both the plastic rods are rubbed by the same material, so both acquire same kind of charge. In the process of rubbing the plastic rod with the cat's fur, the fur acquires positive charge. Now, if we bring a charged plastic rod near to the suspended charged plastic rod, we observe repulsion between them. This further illustrates that like charges repel each other. Now, if the suspended plastic rod is brought near the suspended glass rod, they attract each other. Since the glass rod and the plastic rod have opposite charges on them, therefore we conclude that unlike charges attract each other. Thus, like charges repel each other and unlike charges attract each other. By convention, the charge on the glass rod or cat's fur is called positive, and that on the plastic rod or silk is termed as negative. Let us do one more activity to understand about the attraction and the repulsion between the charges. Here, we observe that if two positively charged balls are brought closer to each other, they repel. Similarly, when two negatively charged balls are brought closer to each other, they also repel. But when one positively charged ball and one negatively charged ball are brought closer, they attract each other. Now, we are in a position to answer that why the pieces of paper get attracted towards the charged comb. It happened because the comb gets charged after being rubbed on the hair. A charged body always attracts an opposite charged body or a neutral body.
Example for non-contact force is gravitational force. Okay, the third example for non-contact force is gravitational force. You know that all objects are falling from a particular height fall downwards, isn't it? Do you know what is the reason behind this? Because the earth exerts a force on every object, and due to this force, the objects are always falling downwards. The earth attracts every object towards its center, and this force is called gravitational force. And the gravity is not a property of earth alone, but all the objects in this universe, whether it is a small object or it is a large object, is not a concern. All objects are exerting some amount of force in another object, and this is also gravitational force. Okay. Then Can you say some more examples of gravitational force? Can you say? Yes. An apple falling from an apple tree, and water begins to flow to the ground as soon as we open the tap, and water always flows downwards in a river. These are some examples of gravitational force. Then we discussed about two types of forces. The one is contact force and the second is non-contact force. And we discussed about two examples for contact force. The first one is muscular force and the second is frictional force. And the three examples of non-contact force is the first magnetic force, the second electrostatic force and the third gravitational force. Okay? All of you clear?
Come students, let us know what is gravitation. You must have observed an apple falling down from the tree towards the ground. However, there is a mystery behind that. What makes an apple fall to the ground? Similarly, you would have seen when the batsman hits the ball up in the air, it always comes down. You must have observed that rainfall and snowflakes always fall towards the ground. If we see in all these phenomena, there is some force which is responsible for objects falling down towards the surface of the earth. Even in our universe, if we see planetary motion, there is some kind of force that keeps planets revolving in their respective orbits around the sun. Similarly, Moon also revolves around the Earth in its orbit due to the presence of a force. Artificial satellites also revolve around the Earth due to the force of attraction. All such phenomena occur due to the force of gravitation. Gravitation is a force of attraction between all the masses in the universe. When you push a box with your hands, you apply force on the box. In this case, hands are in contact with the box. But what in a case of leaf falling from a tree? Is there any force exists? Yes, the earth exerts a force on the leaf, though the leaf is not in contact with the earth. In general, force is divided into two major types: contact forces and non-contact forces. Let us study about contact forces. Forces that two bodies in contact apply on each other are known as contact forces. To push, pull, or lift things around us, we apply contact forces because our hands or feet are in contact with the object. Sometimes there are situations when we apply a contact force on something without actually touching them. As you can see that a person applies a force on the rope and rope applies a force on the bucket. This type of contact force applied by a rope or a wire is known as tension. Tension acts along the rope from which a bucket hangs in a well, or the wire from which a lamp hangs. Let us now discuss about the non-contact forces. Forces that act between two bodies even when they are not in contact with each other are known as non-contact forces. The force of gravity can act on a body even when it is not in contact with the earth. Magnetic force and electrostatic force are common examples of non-contact forces.